So, right, we are recording. So, let's sort of address the elephant in the room straight away. Why am I in an MP's office? And also, why do I look like Mikhail Gorbachev with a big scar on my head? So the second of those questions is that, like, somebody did a Harry Kane on me when I was playing football the other day, but I made it back for me. So I just face planted on the AstroTurf. Second thing is, I'm here to talk to Ian Bailey. Hello, Ian. It's nice to meet you again. And we're here to talk about the Hillsborough Bill, which he is trying to push through Parliament. He is championing. So, for those of you who don't know, in 1989, at the Hillsborough disaster, Liverpool fans were unlawfully killed. The subsequent campaign for justice often took up the slogan, "Justice for the 96." Unfortunately, it is now 97.
Yeah.
After the death of Andrew Devine in 2021. Ian was at Hillsborough, as was your dad, who I believe was seriously injured that day. Ian has sort of been on media and social media talking about this a lot, but because we're a football podcast and we have football fans who are younger and might not sort of properly understand this, that they might understand it in the abstract as something that's bad. I'm going to ask Ian to share some recollections of that day. Can you sort of talk us through what happened?
Thanks for having me, Tom. I think it's quite important that we actually are speaking about this today. It's quite a pivotal moment regarding the legacy for Hillsborough. So 1989, I was 16 at Hillsborough. I'd been there the year before, and we played Forest again in the semi-final, and it was same place, and it was right on the edge. Everybody tells you when in 88 that it was an awful ground. No, it was never fit for purpose. It's never been out there. But in 88, it was just on the line of, it was chaos.
Well, mate Paul Ewart said to me, he'd been at the Forest game earlier the same season in the league. He said it looked like a Trivial Pursuit board. So as such, he was always said there was no way in or out. Well, there was way in, but there was going to be no way out of those.
It was a Portland design stadium. Obviously, off the time, you were committed, wasn't it? And and we know how that that no safety certificates has never been held there. People never got held to account for that. But 88 was. Well, basically, we went in. We enjoyed the game. We come on. We knew how bad it was, but nobody was injured that day. Obviously 89, so we had them recollections, we had that history, so we go there and the sun was shining. We got the train from Liverpool, my two mates, and my girlfriend at the time, but she was a cop season ticket holder. So we all went there, in high spirits. My half fella had gone, he goes with his mates, and he travelled down by car with the lads who I came up with there. And there's like surrogate fathers there. They were all in that car going down. So it was a day of celebrations. In the FA Cup semi-final, you go with your mates, trains full, chocolate. We get off the station, we head down, walk down. And it's funny, we mate talks about it now. As we were going towards the ground, we got there and we did you're 16, you might in. And he was, I always sensed he was down his spine there, there was a fella outside, with one of them boards on, the end of the world is nigh. And we mate sitting down and says, what a day to have that. I remember saying it, what a day to have this, so joyous. So little did we know. So then obviously we go in, Pentry, and it was like it was in 88. It was really busy, really early, so we were there, it's been 2 hours before kick off, just getting the atmosphere building up. And then the girl we were with, she said it was that busy, and she said, I'm really uncomfortable. So then we basically, I said, well, come on then. They said, so my two mates said, no, we will stay because it's safe this year. You know, it's booming, you know, bouncing at 5 hoods. But it was really, really busy. So this was been out before kick-off. And then we were waiting, and then we got out. So we pushed our way up the tunnel and I took a lane to the side. And that was when, you know, Tuckenfield made the decision to open the doors. And then the thousands confronting it. So we just gone to the side, and then you seen how busy the pens were at the side, and then we seen the thousands flooding, and then the kill for that. The disaster be able to happen. What was extremely lucky was obviously if it would have been there, we would have moved. So you know what would have happened. However, also my two mates turned down just as we were heading up the tunnel and said, "No, we've come together, we'll go together." So they came out. So, you know, you just don't know what would have happened in them circumstances. So we stood to the side in complete empty. So to the side of the pens, to the ground was empty because nobody had been diverted into the side pens. So we watched them fold in your ears. It was just there. So you knew my hard fellow was there, but the girls were there. You know, hundreds of friends, you know, connected to Liverpool, schoolmates. So it was horrific. And then we come out and it's no mobile phones there, is there? You know, people were phoning up from home. People from Sheffield were magnificent, letting us into the houses, phoning up. So obviously, you know, he's trying to get in touch with me, ma, because obviously my mum has, we'd had that mate at the game. So she was like many other mums and many other parents, obviously, going out of mind, watching what was happening and having no information at all. So we jumped back on the train. We had back to Liverpool, my uncles were there, my ma, and then she said that we had it was a bad way. So then the next few days it just unfurled. Then, you know, your new mates who were injured, seriously injured, you'd lost friends, you know. Keeper Card, who was a good friend of ours, he lost his life, 16. And then the stories, you know, my mate, my best mates was actually pulled out. So he's the iconic photo when you see the lads getting coloured fans out. I actually use that image in the Hillsborough education programme because you couldn't see it was my mate. It was only when he seen it and he said, "That's me, you know." I was only last year because, and you know, I knew he got pulled out, but it's actually the image. So that was strange that obviously we were using that image of me mate getting pulled out. So yeah, that was the day. And, you know, as it unfurled, Hillsborough fails, doesn't it?
And then the cover up.
And then the cover up. So, like, it's an interesting one there because obviously I remember waking up, you know, and I was in Apprentice Prince at the time, just started, and they were magnificent company and at a boxing speak. So my dad was in Aussie, you know, Sheffield. So 3 days, you know, everyone's up the wall, you know, they're seeing what's happening, you're hearing the news, you get phone calls, you know, people knocking on the door, telling you so-and-so's injured, so-and-so's in a bad way, so-and-so's died. So it was horrific. And then obviously, you know, you're 16 and you pick up, but we didn't meet the sun. We never bought the sun because we banned it from like the miners strike, we didn't ban it, but also, you know, it was not, it was never in our house. We all had the Daily Mirror, but then obviously, you know, we went into the news agents and or somebody said that we seen what was being produced there, and that has such an impact on me. I'm sure it's such an impact on other people as well because it felt like you were going to be married. Because that's seen that.
Yeah. So that wouldn't look like now he could gaslight it.
I knew what I'd seen with my own eyes. So for that then to be printed and then obviously that narrative, and also we'd seen the narrative that was coming off from the police anyway, you know, about you know, but he needs a tiger blame with not football hooliganism and all that bollocks, which they tried to nail on it. So all this is going on, and then I mean, you know, I'm quite proud of the fact that like me for a fair play to him, like he was in Sheffield, Aussie, Tachi came round, and he said, I don't know, she wants to go and visit, going to say friend, and he said, it's someone anywhere near me, someone here to come in, and all the really sell the sale, all the natives were made up, and you know, then he said that, so you know, that's something which you know, he was right to do, because obviously she was a key part of enabling the cover up with obviously a press secretary Ingham, who, you know, he'll go down in infamy for how he behaved, and the narrative of lies which he carried on right to his life, you know, promoting. So yeah, it was mad, because you know, even at 16, going in the poor working class lives, you know, obviously we had a good respect for the police. You know, we did. Well, you know, we sometimes we were on the wrong side of them, and you know, they were the police. They were, you know, they were. So look, you had a good respect, and you know, probably right up even that, you know, the truth of the events could be told, and the first like experience I got of the call-up from a personal point of view was when the West Derby case came to interview us. Interview me after they'd come out of Aussie, and we sent West Midlands police officers to the door, and I opened the door. I said, bear in mind, I think I just turned 17 then. And the first question, I'll never forget it, like, was they come in, and the first question he said to me was, you know, how much did you have to think on his egg? That was the first question. So that was the first and last question, because we'd be pinched them up the house. So things didn't come here, you know. So you knew that, and then that was the beginning, certainly my journey into what was happening, and then obviously the narrative was set. It's all about, you know, the most powerful media organisations in the world, Murdoch's Press, BBC, you know, so even journalists that were there and tried to cut through the narrative of lies, and they've done so well. Well, it was an absolute, it was just so difficult to cut through, and obviously, you know, Liverpool we'd had Heysel. You know, obviously Liverpool was seen in the 80s as a troublesome city.
So Everton was brought it down.
Yeah. So we were easy, you know, football fans, football hooliganism. It was an easy one, wasn't it, for the narrative to gain traction, and for the smears and the people who wrote the smears their lives to create that narrative which was so bloody powerful. And you know, for the listeners, I think the power of that, them lies and smears. You know, nearly called another Hillsborough in Paris, because the police, the Parisian police, hook, line and sinker, took that narrative of Hillsborough.
Champions League final. Okay, so relatively recently.
It was all 2020. That 2020 wasn't it? So that showed you the absolute power. 2022. That showed you the absolute power of that narrative and lies, not just in this country, because it still lingers in this country, even though people should know better. We see that with the statistics, but the power of obviously the worldwide impression that made about Liverpool football sports, even though, you know, since, you know, but you know, not any instances. However, you know, that created basically the model is the French youth to police that game, which was nearly catastrophic. It was nearly catastrophic. So yeah. But what I will say on that point as well is that also we knew that UEFA, the French police, they were using the playbook. So straight away, the narrative lies, the screen, you know, delays to kick off, the fan trouble, you know, they tried to pin that on us seriously. The difference this time was we were ready. So there was a group of Liverpool supporters were doing social media immediately after it, because we knew the narrative was all important, and also mobile phones.
Yeah, colours and those social media,
mobile phones, and we had reporters there. There were cameras, you know. Those Sky Sports reporters were fantastic.
Yeah,
they were absolutely fantastic on the day, and many others deserve honourable mentions. But then got the opportunity straight after that game.
Yeah.
God, it was chaos. You know, we tried to say people get crushed. It was horrific. We were, you know, in different areas of that ground. We were seconds away from people losing their lives watching a football match once again. And I'd done a Sky Sports interview just as I was getting the train back to London, and we had the opportunity then to and say exactly how it was, exactly how pleased the disgrace of UEFA. And from that, we fought back and we regained the narrative, so we didn't let them get distracted. Then we got an investigation with many eminent people on, but one of them was Pete Weatherby, he was the architect of the Hillsborough Law, and we asked for him to be on that panel investigation into that, and then we got a report of the 8 months later, and he actually used the Hillsborough Law to duty of candor elements of it to get to that report, and then total exoneration. But it showed you. They were going to try it again.
I was only 9 when Hillsborough happened. I remember going to play for my football team the following day, and it was really memorable. Number one, it's the first time I'd seen grown men crying.
Yeah.
And the reason they were crying was because football people knew straight away.
Yeah.
Most football people, I think, knew that it was the narrative that was being peddled by the cops and the press and government was all shit.
Yeah.
Really. Coming onto the bill, do you want to talk us through that? Because there's a really interesting element to it, isn't there? Around, it's not just about Hillsborough, is it?
No.
It's about public officials lying.
Yeah. No, 100%. So, I've had a long journey to get it to this place. I've done many, many different things. So to actually end up in this place and then get the opportunity to Andy Byrne and Rotherham, to Steve Rotherham, he laid it in 2017. Then to ask me 220, but for needs someone from Parliament to push this through again. And there's two elements, there's two legacies left in those families. That's about there's education. So we set up the Real True Legacy project in Liverpool to educate youngsters and school children about Hillsborough, but also what the state's capable of, future-proof the kids about what the state's capable of. And that's very important legacy. And also, allied to that is the Hillsborough Law. When Andy brought that forward after Bishop James Jones's report on Hillsborough, which was, he was asked to do that by Theresa May. And he came up with a series of recommendations. Andy, working with Pete Weatherby and Elton Abrams, and put it together. It's a form of legislation. 217 goes through, general election calls. So that falls, and he then goes out with Steve to be Metro Mayor of Manchester. So then I come in 2019 through my estate, and then they asked me to restart it again. But what we did this time, and as you touched on, it's what state above.
Yeah, interesting timing in terms of what the state can do in terms of what's happening around Palestine at the moment.
Well, at the moment, yeah. But we look back at, you remember the list endless, isn't it? Contaminated blood scandal, the Horizon scandal, the post office.
Yeah.
There's been state cover-up after state cover-up, and they all basically use the same playbook. They paint people who were the victims, demonised, and don't believe them and gaslight them. And I've got constituents who, I've got a friend who was actually in the same school as me, who she lost her dad and her uncle's contaminated blood scandal to Liverpool Doffers. So coming into this place, then you see all the plants, and I see all the dots joining up. So that was a big part of what we tried to do. We set up an APPD, or Parliamentary Youth and Public Accountability, to push this, and the aim was to get it in a Labour manifesto. That was the aim, to get it into the manifesto, which we succeeded. And I think it was a collective effort from everybody involved in the Hillsborough Law now group, many different campaigns. Truth About Zane's another one. There's so many different campaigns, and the people have been magnificent in pushing that. So we get it in the Labour Party manifesto, which is brilliant. I'm delighted with that. But what we also got which is fundamentally so important to why we're speaking today, of commitment from the leader of the Labour Party in 2022 to implement the Hillsborough Law. Now, that is the Hillsborough, and we are talking about that, but that is the Hillsborough. So we've got commitment, and that's important. It's not Hillsborough. So Prime Minister make that commitment. Then in 2024, he comes to the Liverpool conference and he says, Hillsborough Law. He comes as Prime Minister, and he said, "Don't be first acts. It'll be implement that Hillsborough Law." But in power, unbelievably canny that they'll actually go and see something which is a huge part of what I stood on as an MP, which has changed. See, this is personal to me, but for the whole city of Liverpool, but not for Liverpool. More people died Hillsborough from outside the city. And also so fundamentally important to this is it's about the huge amounts as an outlined of criminals by the state. A, no acknowledgement. B, blaming the people that it's been done to. But just as important, no mistakes acknowledged and learned from. Which is taken there in how immoral that is. So we've got this commitment. We're in the elections. We're all waiting, and it's not happening. And then what's happening is we're having talks behind the scenes. We're having meetings with ministers, and the Prime Minister set an arbitrary deadline, which was the 35th anniversary, 50th debate. Yeah. So that was 36, wasn't it? 36. That was looming large in people's minds. That was looming large. That's the deadline.
He was scheduled to go and talk to the victims' families in April, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was set up for that to happen. I went, okay, well, we can go, because what happened was Pete Weatherby and Elkin Abrams from the original architects of the law, but having meetings with high-level government, lawyers, officials. We were having meetings with ministers, saying to them, so we're saying from a political point of view, moral point of view, to speed promise. But what was happening was, what happened was a piece of legislation was proposed by the government, and only Peter went in the room to see it for an hour, and they called it a Hillsborough Law. Well, Peter, it's one of the most eminent cases in the country. He's actually now, it's a COVID inquiry to them. So he has an hour with it, he comes out and he said, that's not the Hillsborough. That's a concoction of words which doesn't do anything to change the culture of cover-ups. It doesn't do anything for the parity of arms, because there's two elements to the Hillsborough Law which is probably important for your listeners to understand. There's basically a duty of candor, which is public officials to go into inquiries, investigations, and have a legal duty on them to tell the truth with criminal sanction. Because from Stick Hillsborough perspective, we have police officers getting on and lying with absolute impunity.
So Duckenfield was found to lie.
Yeah.
He was found not guilty of gross misconduct leading to manslaughter, Somerham, and nothing really ever happened to him. And the cops were found to have lied, and I believe the sort of findings for that was they lied. I think the independent, but the governing body of the police. If I remember rightly, they said that one of the cops were like within their rights to make sort of
to tell that.
Yeah.
So that's where we are with the system as it stands now, and well, you might find that unbelievable, but that's what it is. That's how it is, and that's why obviously we've had this culture of cover-ups, because public officials could lie with impunity, with no sanctions. Duckenfield kept his pension.
Yeah.
That hands once were in my eyes for 97 deaths and thousands of survivors who were traumatized. People who took their lives after Hillsborough. They took their own lives.
The cops, I believe it was Duckenfield. I might be mistaken on this, but the cops were encouraged to not write anything down in their notebooks, I believe. that day, and that was also that's been found to be that's fine.
But that was a fundamental key part of the call, but also the changing of notes.
Yeah,
Yeah, statements were changed. My dad's statement was changed.
yeah,
So when he got it back and see it wasn't a statement, it was changed. So that was key parts of what we call them. That was the establishment.
yeah.
That's the power of the establishment.
They went into a porter cabin apparently. They're all sort of told this is what's going to happen, and then sort of a bunch of the higher ups were invited into a porter cabin next door.
That was an industrial scale couple.
Yeah,
and
they were told this is what's really good. This is what we're really going to do.
So that's the story of Hillsborough. And if anybody really wants to have a look at that, I'd recommend them reading Professor Phil Screen's book, Hillsborough.
Yeah,
it's fantastic piece of work, and I think that's like a seminal piece of work. It tells you innately, it shows you the cover. So when anyone wants to take from that, read that book and see state cover up in order to morality. So where were we then?
We're talking about the bill, the element of
So that the duty candor, and that's got to apply to all public officials. That's really important, and it can be selective in when it's used. It's got to be all inquest, all investigation, all inquiries. That's got to be a fundamental building block of how we rewire this country's justice system.
And there were people who were fuming when you tried to bring that the other day. I've seen a bit of the footage, and they were people in Parliament doing their nuts, basically, weren't they?
Well, there was people who, because obviously we're in talks with the government to bring forward the Hillsborough. As I explained, we brought forward a really awful piece of draft legislation, which would have been an insult. And we said, we take the name Hillsborough off it, and it's not where you the name. Said that to the ministers, another MP to say as well. That's a bit continuation of the betrayal. So that was relayed. When Pete came out, Pete said, it's just not the Hillsborough Law. But then obviously that was relayed back, and I relayed it to the powers that be and said, we're not backing it. The campaigns come back until they're not backing it. So obviously, the government were going to make an announcement that this was going to be a Hillsborough Law. We told them not to. And thankfully, the Prime Minister listened and took it off the table. However, then we've had a couple of months of negotiations with lawyers, Pete Elkin, and basically we reached an impasse about 6 weeks ago, where basically unofficial sources were telling us that the government was just going to put that awful piece of legislation through, and just obviously got a huge mandate, and as many MPs that would do whatever the government wants them to do, that would have gone through. So obviously, I'm not here to allow continuation of the betrayal of the people of my city, and obviously the people I stood dead there. Everyone who I've met in my lifetime connected to this show, I've been put here for a reason, and for me that was a big reason, which was just egged up. So what we did there is utilise parliamentary procedures. We used everything within our power to stop the government from doing something so cataclysmic and so wrong. There's many times in this parliament I've spent 6 months above the 82 child cap. That wasn't in that, scrapping that. For winter fuel payments, that wasn't in the manifesto. What we've seen with the disability benefits cut bill, that wasn't in the manifesto. This was in the bloody manifesto. We'd had a commitment from the Prime Minister on an occasion, personal commitments being made by the Prime Minister, the families of the Hillsborough families in person, that it's going to be the Hillsborough. So we have to hold the feet to the fire. So that's what we've done. And then, as you said, this, we submitted the 2017 Hillsborough Law, and I secured the 10-minute rule bill by nefarious means.
Don't say that.
And then we had the opportunity to lay it down, and that was basically saying to the governments, back that bill or come up with something which is worthy of what would be fined for, and and I think that the frustrating thing for us is that basically that's there, that's ready to go, supported by the families, supported by every campaign we talked about who are fighting for justice, who've been victims of the state cover-up, all support that. So the government should just implement that. I just think that's what we should do. But they won't, because there's a huge pushback from the establishment, from the people that want to continue lying and continue that culture. And that's what we've come up against. Now, for me, and I've said this and I'll say it again, at the end of the day, the Prime Minister is the most qualified man to understand, A, what the ill law is, what it does, what this country needs with his background in law. And we have to make sure that he understands that this is now on him. He's in a position, he wants to be the Prime Minister, right? He's got the levers and power. He can do this. He's had a long history with the Hillsborough families. He's been around, spent the DPP, he's worked with them. So we have to put the accountability elements on him now. He can do this. So if they're vested interest, the Prime Minister needs to say, no, we've had enough. People have had enough. The country's had enough. I was Prime Minister, that's not a manifesto of change for this. Such a fundamental change. It was totally transformed. That element of the judicial system. And, a key element is parity of arms as well, which gives everybody a fair chance of fighting in fact, doing justice. Because for your listeners, if you go in against the state and you've got that element of parity of arms, well, then they'll have an unlimited bottomless pit of money to bring the best lawyers in the world, in the country, probably the world, against you. And you, from a Hills perspective, we had to Hillsborough families had to crowdfund a young, inexperienced solicitor to take on the might of the state. Now, how's that a fair fight?
Yeah. And that's,
So there's the two elements to the bill, and that's why this is so fundamentally important.
Which sounds strange for a football fan, for a Scouser and a Liverpool fan to be saying that this is bigger than Hillsborough. But this is, it's so much bigger than Hillsborough, isn't it? For people, we interviewed Mark Bunnick, who recently lost his job as the Arsenal kit man for pro-Palestinian tweets. This links to Palestine. This links to stuff going back to things like Orgreave.
Yeah.
To the
assessments.
Yeah.
70 years.
Yeah. To the Midas strike, to all kinds of things in which the state has been weaponised against it. I've largely worked for class people. Actually, I mean, I've seen you talk about class, which is quite unusual for a member of parliament, but it does tend to be working class people.
Yeah, undoubtedly so, and absolutely, the very things that sort of emotional way. The state cover up to, predominantly against working class people who haven't got access to justice and basically just get pummeled into not giving up. And that's why the Hillsborough stories both so sad but so inspirational that
those
families and survivors just never give up. Never give up. And the toll it's took on their lives. I've seen close friends with lots of the families now and survivors, and the toll it's took on their lives by fighting. Now, Mike Aspinall was on the couch last week on VSECB saying, that we're not going to accept a compromise. So that's an end of that. So
there are people involved in that cover-up who can now rest easy because of what the court has found. These families are never going to rest easy, are they?
No, they never had time to grieve. They never stopped. And as they say now, and as you just alluded to, this is a key part of the legacy moving forward. For those that have been lost, this is about making the country a fairer, more equitable place. And if working class people have this happen to them again, at the Hills, and it always will. We're talking about Cramsdale. You've got COVID inquiry now. It's about rewiring the state. So it's fairer, as I said, more equitable place, and that's why there's voices that want to continue the status quo, that want to continue to be able to tell lies with impunity, that want to continue to cover up mistakes, and see the Ministry of Defence, the Afghan thing. So just that culture is there, and that's something which we've got to change for the better.
Should we end there with a call to action? What would you like people watching this to do?
I think to support what we're doing. You know, if you watch, you know, we retweet to social media, sign a petition, which we've got calling on unemployment to deliver the Hillsborough Law, and just take an active interest in, you know, what's going on, not just from a Hillsborough perspective. Look at all the other campaigns and the fights for justice. All Grieve's got in on that's upcoming the government. I'm delighted that they've actually, you know, delivered on that promise which they made to the All Grieve families and those connected to All Grieve, and that's a very important moment in time, that, because that was basically the template for Hillsborough, the same police force, the Thatcher stormtroopers. You know, that's going to be a really interesting investigation. Politically, it's going to be fascinating because the state haven't wanted that to happen. So, you know, hats off to, you know, to me, the late government actually delivering that. But it's got to be make sure that the processes are right. Hopefully, it's going to mirror the Hillsborough Independent Panel. So for anyone listening, just watch with interest, as I say, and keep between all the stuff that we're putting out, because it's so fundamentally important to the people of this country that that law is delivered, put into legislation, because that makes such a difference.
All right. Cheers, Ian.
I hope
Keep fighting, man.
I will.